So, good morning, and thank you for joining us. My name is Jane Morgan, Investor and Media Relations Manager at Temas Resources. Today marks an important day for our company as we will be commencing trading on the ASX at 11:30 Australian Eastern Daylight Time under the ticker code TIO. Today, you'll hear how our patented metallurgical technology supports our new model for secure and sustainable critical mineral processing, and how our 100% owned titanium vanadium projects in Canada provide the strategic foundation for a fully integrated Western supply chain. We'll be running through today's presentation and followed by a Q&A session. So to ask a question throughout today's webinar, please use the Q&A function, which can be found at the bottom of your screen. With that said, I'd like to introduce you to our Chairman and Executive Director, Kyla Hardy, who will tell you more.
Thanks, Jane. Appreciate it, and appreciate everyone for being here today. It's been a long road to get here, and we're very excited to introduce Temas to the Australian investor community. So, just as Jane mentioned, we are a critical metals processing and development business based in Quebec, Canada, and with two projects there as well as our technology. We've got two distinct legs to the company, the IP and the processing side, as well as the project side. And the project side and the processing side kind of fit hand in glove here nicely, as we're using the material from the projects to one, prove up the technology further and advance it with our own material, but then an enhancing value of those two projects. So, as a broad overview, the regenerative chloride leach process has 11 novel patents associated with it, for all the way from digestion to how the magnesium chloride and the hydrogen chloride interact with each other, all the way to dropping out those metals as in independent streams at the end of the day. It's been validated to show up to about 65% cost savings as opposed to other TiO2 processing methodologies. And we've luckily been able to process and come up with a product that shows 99.8% purity. So it's an end product. It's not like we have to take it to another step to get it further refined. We can hand it directly off to the next user. And the projects that we have are located in Quebec, just outside of Baie-Comeau and Saguenay, both of which are moderately advanced. One went through a scoping study previously, and the other has advanced drilling on it. So La Blache is a 700 or 7,000 hectare project, sitting at about 16.5% TiO2 equivalent indicated. And we anticipate moving that project forward here in the coming 12 months, using that material to feed into the regenerative chloride leach platform. And secondly, Lac Brûlé, much higher grade over there, about 34% titanium dioxide or TiO2. And the nice thing is it's only about 15% drilled out, of small postage stamp on it, and the geophysics signature shows a much larger body that we anticipate getting into here. So broadly and specifically on various points here. So the technology, we'll be 100% owners of it here as of now, since we have IPO'd. We executed our option to acquire the second 50% of that technology platform, so we own it 100%. And we anticipate being able to use that process to build joint ventures and partnerships with others to process their material. Secondly, we've got those two projects that I just talked about, and those will go to enhance and move the technology forward rapidly, rather than relying on others to provide their material. We've got a built-in method of advancement. Third, we're looking at global joint ventures as we continue to prove it up, to deploy that technology to third parties and become processing partners in those projects. So the history of the technology, it has been tested by some very large global players, and we've re-engaged with those players at this point in time, and are actively in discussions with numerous parties in order to secure processing joint ventures. And one of the reasons that we're really excited about the processing, not only that it takes it right to the to an end product, and you can do whole rock digestion with it, but it shows a significant cost savings, as we previously talked about. We're committed to the ESG component of this as part of the processing is through reusing that acid stream there. So we don't push any out into the environment or put it into tailings facilities. And finally, I mean, the valuation here, we're starting at about a just shy of a $20 million valuation Aussie. Oops. The part of the whole narrative here is the reshoring and the defense spending that has been significantly increasing in recent history. Um, we're currently global defense spending is over 2.4 trillion and doesn't seem to be slowing down at all here. The titanium dioxide, which can be further refined into titanium, is a key piece of that metal stream there to continue that narrative. But the bigger piece of the narrative is Western companies and Western nations have been, we need to bring the processing, so from the mine to a finished product back close to home in order to manage those supply chains, which over the last, let's say, 10 years, we've probably noticed that they're becoming much more fragile and uh, open to manipulation of the prices of the underlying commodities, which can hamper further development and security of supply. So our metallurgical IP and technology licensing the shows superior margins. We have opportunities to bring large partners in to deploy this technology, and not only that is driving the cost of processing our own titanium dioxide, iron, and vanadium significantly lower. So just as we're looking at the RCL or the general chloride leach platform as a group of technologies that we can deploy individually. So not only into our TiO2 and our vanadium and our iron, but into rare earth products globally, into oxide, sulfide, and other ores. We're looking at nickel opportunities that sit in Indonesia, where, as many of you know, the processing of those laterites has been particularly complex. We see an opportunity now to deploy this technology into that type of an environment to make an extremely clean and end use product, whether it's of the cobalt or the nickel there as well. So it's the opportunity to be a processing partner rather than a licensing partner is where we see the opportunity to move this technology forward and build significant shareholder value in Temas. As a broad overview, and just going to be very clear, I'm not a metallurgist. I'm the business side of this endeavor here, so I'm going to do my best to break this down as simply as possible. Basically, what happens is you go through a crushing process and a grinding process, and then you put it into an atmospheric leach reactor, which is where the whole rock is digested, as our COO David Caldwell likes to say, blood, guts, and feathers, everything. Just put it all in there; it'll digest it. Goes into filtration where you take off your silicate stream, your gangs. You lose about 5% of your acids there, and then you move it along. You drop the iron out, and which is where the first or the second patent lies, is how we drop that iron out, and then finally you start to drop out your vanadium and your TiO2. The vanadium isn't represented here, but the patents are additionally on how you drop those various products out, and it's a continuous stream, so it's around in a circle. So we regenerate those acid streams there. There is a little bit of work to do yet on that in order to take it to scale, but we're well along that route currently here. So just broadly, the how do these how does this compare to the other extraction methods for TiO2? The key pieces here are it's at atmospheric pressure, so you're not operating under extremely high pressures. you regenerate and reuse your acids and your other chemicals in there, so you're not continually adding, other than topping up from what would is taken off on the bleed stream, and you're operating at significantly lower temperatures. You're in that 65 to 75 degrees C rather than several thousand degrees Celsius, or up to 1200 degrees Celsius. So it's from a health and safety, it's from an environmental, and it's from a continuous processing perspective, where the technology sits above others in the TiO2 space in particular. So over the coming 12 months here, we're going to be extremely busy on the technology front. Part of what we're going to end up doing is getting all of the material, all the drill core from that's been previously warehoused on the LeBlanche project, and using that to feed into the process here starting later on this fall. We have engaged, or are engaging currently, a Andritz out of Austria, in order to work on the regenerative component of that process, and some additional patents to file with work that we've completed and are completing right now. And finally, taking it into large pilot scale, so up to a ton a day of material, to prove up scalability of the technology. Um, with all that said, yeah, it's going to be primarily on our ores out of Lablache and out of Lac Brûlé, but we are actively working on with third parties to bring them in as part of this process to test it there as well. Uh, Specifically, Australia, Indonesia, and the US currently. So I want to touch on our exploration assets that we currently have in the company as well here. Albeit we are pushing more towards the technology front right now. We have two excellent assets. The LeBlanche asset, we anticipate starting a drill program, some sizable, probably HQ size core on this, extending the Farrell Taylor and the Hervé Est deposits here over the coming several months, and taking that from an inferred into a measured and indicated category, and hopefully showing daylighting of the Farrell Taylor in particular. Hervé Est is currently daylights as it sits. So you can see here, from the Farrell Taylor to the western end of it here, there's a small additional uh, mag high, which is where it's called the Shmoo showing, which we anticipate where we're planning on doing that initial drilling in order to daylight, as well as bringing the Hervé Est and the Hervé West back into compliance, as we acquired that from a third party, taking it to a measured and indicated. It's much higher grade, historically about 18%, whereas we're at about 16.5% on Farrell Taylor currently. And that will lead into issuing a scoping study, and hopefully lead into a feasibility study on the projects with a joint venture partner later on. Lac Brûlé, this one here is, like I said, much higher grade, but only partially drilled out, about 15% drilled out. We're looking at 34% here. We have a plan to do up to 2,500 meters of drilling on it and a bulk sample. That material feeds directly into the process, so we can tie the higher grade material into the regenerative chloride leach process and prove that it works with higher grade material as well, not just the lower grade TiO2 deposits. So both of them are road accessible, and close to infrastructure on the St. Lawrence Seaway. And then finally, news flow on the projects here. We see the opportunity to hire some additional metallurgical staff, bring on a couple of senior metallurgists to one, do business development on the technology, but also to look at our processing capabilities, and how the various types of ore that we're dealing with can be dealt with internally here. We're going to be talking about some significant business model updates over the coming few months here. We've recently completed a LiDAR survey on both projects, and we're heading into, like I said, our drilling here later on this fall, and we anticipate a fair bit of news out of that, and that's primarily to gain additional material for our for the to prove up the met process further and take it to a much larger scale. So, a few of the pieces just around Temas here. The technology is the key piece around it is the that it you reuse that that acid in there. It would and you operate at much lower temperatures and atmospheric pressures. So health and safety, environmental, and the ability to work in confined or smaller areas than you necessarily would with, say, a roaster. That's the key driver of this business moving forward is commercializing that technology with third parties and internally on our assets. Um, our management team, I'm going to talk about them just in a brief second here. But finally, the two significant assets that we have in Quebec there are we see them as value drivers and opportunities to bring larger partners in to help advance them as we move them forward. Briefly, our management team, myself, a resource entrepreneur for most of my career, and continue to be active in the generative space in the mining sector. I sit as executive chairman. Tim Fernbach, ex-investment banker, venture capitalist, as our CEO. David Robinson as our CFO, past fund manager and CFO of the Cronin Group. The And then David Caldwell, our COO, who has taken these types of deposits from first drill hole through to mine finance. He's been the key value driver around getting into the technology and understanding how it can work on our projects. And then finally, as our consultant, Danny Dutton, and we're very keen to have him on board to advise us moving forward around the how we're developing the technology and how we are deploying that technology further. He's got a history of operating with TIO2 globally, but specifically across Africa for a major. And many of you in the audience here today will know Kobe Ben Shabbat, several large projects that listed on the ASX currently that he's been involved with over the years. He came in to really give us a bit of more of insight, if you will, into the Australian markets and to help craft the strategy moving forward. So it's a relevant discussion point with our investors. And then General Counsel is Michelle Leboeuf, and our independent director is Véronique Labarge. Today we sit at about a 20 million market cap, and with 11 significant patents and two major projects that we have to move forward. And I'd be happy to take any questions that Jane or the audience might have on Temas.
Yeah, absolutely. I might even just get you to stop sharing your screen
Oh,
there. I'll jump into it. So first one, what are the key technical and economic advantages of the RCL processing technology compared to existing titanium production routes?
absolutely. So currently, the primary form of titanium processing is through roasters. So large, high temperature roasting facilities that, quite frankly, we'll probably never build another one in North America or Europe. I don't know about Australia, but I would probably doubt it personally. We have the opportunity to reduce that greenhouse gas emissions, but also reduce costs through reusing our reagents rather than continually pushing them out into a tailings or a slag heap, if you will. We use the whole ore rather than only taking little bits and pieces of it out. So that's our key economic driver. Is we've got the iron, we've got the titanium, and we've got the vanadium, as well as probably several other strategic metals in our ore deposits that we're currently putting through our process. So that we get to pick all the little bits and pieces out where others might not be able to do so, or it's not economically viable for them to do so.
Thanks, Kyla. This one's come through a few times actually as well. So, what is the status of current licensing discussions and when might the first commercial agreement be secured?
So The current status is ongoing with more than a handful of significant third parties, both in the TIO2 sector globally. So other deposits similar to Lac Brûlé and La Blache, those, and we're very excited to keep those moving forward as it sort of dovetails nicely with our internal strategy here. Outside of that, the we've got several conversations ongoing with nickel laterite explorers and developers, one active mine currently, and we're moving that forward as best we can. We unfortunately had to take a little step back from those discussions and concluding those agreements in order to get ourselves listed on the ASX. Now that we're there, we can pick those back up and move them down the field. I would say over the coming 6 months or so, we're going to see some big steps forward coming into the new year and into the our spring, your guys's fall, and be able to have some pretty serious news around those. And additionally, not only with the third parties, but our own internal advancements as well on our two projects and showing how it can scale on those projects there.
Thank you, Carla. That actually leads me to the next one. So, what are the immediate exploration priorities at the two projects, and how should investors interpret success?
Great. Yeah. So we are anticipating starting a drill program anytime now on the Lac Brûlé, or sorry, the La Blache project. Excuse me. And the key piece of that will be to drill out along strike to the west into that Shmoo showing where that mag high was that I showed you guys, and that's to bring it to daylight. That primary project there. And then secondarily is onto the Erva Est and Erva West pieces of the deposit, which we acquired through an option agreement as we came out with our previous scoping study in Canada here. And it'll be to move those back, some larger diameter core on both of these, move them back into an active, measured, and indicated. So and then putting some additional drill holes into the higher grade zones and hope in order to hopefully increase that grade and tonnage substantially. So the way I would interpret success is uh, seeing that western strike of the Farrell Taylor come to fruition. We do know that there is a daylighting component of it there. It's what happens in between those two pieces. And then with Erva Est and West is restatement of those resources back into measured and indicated and update our scoping study on those.
Thank you, Kyla. I'm jumping around a little bit here. Next question is, can you give a little bit more detail on those partnerships that you mentioned in Australia, Indonesia, and elsewhere? What commodities and mine throughput or tailings processing?
Great question. Yes, I'll give as much as I can without compromising all of us. How's that sound? The so we've had active discussions around several gold tailings in Australia and are actively engaging those and moving them forward, figuring out how the two parties work together, I suppose, and if it makes sense for both parties to work together. They're comfortable with how the technology sits currently, and they'd like to be part of that group to move it forward. So we're currently looking at gold tailings. We're currently looking at some copper tailings, several titanium dioxide and vanadium slag heap type processings, nickel. Various rare earth projects are part of our business development pipeline currently and are very active in the discussion phases, and as well as TiO2 and vanadium, obviously. So those are our key. I mean, it's a broad focus, but the nice thing is you don't have to modify what we already have in order to start to look at those various processes.
All right, next one, Kyla. So, how will the company balance investment in technology development with capital discipline on the exploration side?
Great question. So the key the key aspect there is as we explore and as we bring that resource through from where it currently sits in the inferred category on the Lablache project to back to measured and indicated or into measured and indicated on the Farrell Taylor. All of that material that we get out of there goes directly into the RCL process. So as we're drilling out, as we're developing the resource, we're actively moving the technology forward. So they work hand in glove. We would need to acquire that material anyways from a third party, or so why not enhance value on our own projects while we're building the technology process further and proving it up at scale. So initially, there's going to be a few million go into the drilling out, so another 8,000 meters on the Lablache project. As we get through that, we get into an inflection point where we have to decide if we're going to execute on a feasibility study or we're not going to execute on a feasibility study. And and then the primary focus of Temas moving forward here now is growing that footprint of its RCL platform. So we've got logical step out points on the projects that we can put a halt to any further development on them in order to focus our capital resources on the technology. And it's not like the rocks are going to go anywhere. Those rocks are the same. They've been there for tens of millions of years, and they're going to stay there until we decide to move them forward. The so it's but we need that material to move the process forward. Sorry, sort of speaking circularly there in a circle there, but it's true. We're going to use the material here in order to advance this. As we advance this, this becomes the key focus, let's say, over the next 6 to 12 months, the processing side of the business.
Thanks, Kyla. And look, we've got time for one more, and we ask this all the time, and you've reiterated it throughout the presentation, but what should shareholders be looking forward to from a news flow perspective over the next sort of 3 to 6 months?
Absolutely. We're going to have an active fall here, active spring, however you want to look at it. We have a drill program starting anytime now. We're actively getting towards a bulk sample and drill permit on Lac Brûlé as well. We have all those pieces to discuss, advancement of the and putting together our large pilot facility, and hopefully announcing a partnership or two over the coming, I would say more like 6 months rather than 3 to 6 months. I'd probably push it out to the back end of that. Just commercial agreements do take some time, but it's going to be very active, and hopefully see some results out of the new pilot facility sort of early in the new year.
Wonderful. Well, that is all we've got time for today. I want to thank you all for joining us for the Temas Resources Investor Webinar. As I mentioned, we will commence trading on the ASX today at 11:30 Australian Eastern Daylight Time under the ticker code TIO. And if we've missed any of your questions, please feel free to reach out via the contact details on the bottom of our ASX releases. But thanks again for joining us.